Today we're hiking the Norberg Lake Loop in Bearhead Lake State Park. It's a 3-mile trail with a gentle climb and plenty of lake views. The walk may be short, but the story here is long. We're going to start with a billion-year-old rock formation. We're going to make a mess with some glacial till during the Ice Age. We're going to fast forward to a gold rush venture that came up empty, then into a logging boom that did quite well, even though it sadly reshaped the forest. Then we're going to see how in about 1 year, this area went from being a quiet stretch of North Country to becoming a state park, later honored as America's favorite park with a little help from 2 unforgettable black bear cubs. Let's go hiking. Before we dive into the history, let's go over the trail stats. The Norberg Lake Trail is a 3-mile loop, or around 4.8 kilometers, with 127 feet or 39 meters of elevation gain. It is a loop trail, and I would rate it moderate technical because of the glacial till. More about that later. This park's story begins not hundreds or thousands of years ago, but billions of years ago. Beneath your feet lies Ely greenstone and Giants Ridge granite, which is some of the oldest exposed rock in North America. It's more than 2.5 billion years old. Greenstone is ancient volcanic rock, which is hardened lava from a time when the earth was still forming its continents. That's how old it is. Then granite came later as molten rock cooled slowly underground. And these are not just ordinary stones. These are survivors from a deep past when life itself was just beginning to stir here on Earth. Now, we're going to skip way forward. Way forward. We're going to skip to the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago. Let's imagine walls of ice, a mile thick, just grinding over this bedrock. And as the glaciers advanced, they acted like bulldozers, tearing up soil and stone, dragging it forward. When the glaciers melted back, all that debris dropped into place as glacial till, a chaotic jumble of clay, sand, gravel, and boulders all mixed together, and you can't miss it. It's everywhere on the trail. Here at Bearhead Lake, the till is only a few feet thick, so you can actually also see the ancient bedrock in certain places. But again, every single step on this hike, pretty much, you will see glacial till. The glaciers also left behind moraines, which are ridges made up of that till marking the old edge of the ice where the glacier's retreat paused. 2 of them, the Watson and the Vermilion moraines, frame this park. They are both terminal moraines, the ridge at the furthest advance of a glacier. It's like the glacier's end line, showing the maximum reach of the ice. And not to say I'm biased, but I think the terminal moraines are the coolest of the types. Yes, there are actually many different types of moraines, and Bearhead Lake State Park has some of the coolest moraines. This geological feature gave the land its rolling hills and carved out the basins that filled with water, creating the lakes that we see today. So after the glaciers retreated, of course, the people moved in, and for centuries this was Ojibwe homeland. Families moved throughout these forests, hunting, fishing, gathering wild rice, and setting down deep cultural roots. And then, of course, in 1854, the Treaty of La Pointe set new boundaries in this region, but it also guaranteed Ojibwe people the right to keep hunting, fishing, and gathering here, and that treaty is still recognized today. And it's a reminder that this land story is not just about geology and ice, but about the people whose connection to the lakes and the woods are even deeper and longer. So, of course, it was during the late 1800s that outsiders came looking for wealth. And in 1885, prospectors actually sank a gold mine shaft near here, hoping to strike it rich. They didn't find any. But their attempt just shows you how far even a remote lake in the North Woods was not beyond the reach of these mining companies. The real boom, though, wasn't gold, it was pine. By the 1890s, loggers had arrived, and they saw an endless supply of tall white and red pines and wasted no time cutting them basically all down. In 1907, the Allen and Wittenberg Company built a sawmill right on the south shore of Bearhead Lake. It ran for only 2 years before being sold to Tower Lumber, which dismantled it in 1911. The forest was cut hard, and the waste behind fueled devastating slash fires from 1911 to 1913. Even today, if you look closely, you can still find blackened stumps in the woods, scars from that deforestation and from the fires, and old railroad grades, once used to haul logs, are still faint but still traceable beneath the second growth forest. After the loggers left, nature began to heal. The tall pines were gone. They were replaced by a patchwork of birch and aspen and younger pines. The fires had faded, and a few cabins slowly did appear, but for the most part, this became just a quiet backcountry. And that long pause is why Bearhead Lake still feels wild. The regrowth gave the land a second chance after the logging industry had basically decimated the place. In fact, if you look at old pictures of the North Shore from the 1900s, it looks vastly different. There's almost no trees that you can see in some of these pictures. It's shocking, actually. So, by the late 1950s, people began to realize that this quiet place was worth protecting. And in 1959, two forestry officials drove a new road into Bearhead Lake, and what they saw convinced them that this place needed to be a park. So just 2 years later, in 1961, Bearhead Lake State Park was created. So work moved really fast. Roads, campsites, picnic areas were all built in the same year. And in June of 1962, the park was formally dedicated, with Conrad Worth, the director of the National Park Service, giving the keynote address. See, during this time, Worth was actually leading this nationwide push to modernize America's parks. So his presence here was tied to a much bigger conservation story, even though it was from this little corner of Minnesota. It was part of a much bigger push around the country to modernize and improve national parks. So the park grew modestly over the decades, with added shoreline and forest helping preserve its character. But here comes one of the strangest twists in this park's history. In 2010, Bearhead Lake State Park won a national online contest run by Coca-Cola called America is Your Park. And it wasn't just a small thing. There was more than 5 million votes cast, and Bearhead Lake came out on top, claiming the $100,000 prize. And why did this sleepy little park in the North Woods of Minnesota win? Because of bears. No, really, because of black bears. A mother black bear named Lily and her cubs, Hope and Faith, were being watched by thousands of people on a live webcam near Ely, and their fans rallied behind Bearhead Lake State Park, voting it to victory, and the prize money built a trail center that visitors still use today. In fact, I used it when I filmed this video, so thank you to everyone who voted. You want to smell my kitty cat? My cat's about as big as you. Here's a perfect example of that glacial till that I have been talking about. And so the glacier just grabbed up all this stone, and when it decided to pause here to create the moraines, it just dropped all of this stone. And so pretty much the entire hike, you're going to be stepping on or around these rocks, aka glacial till from around 12 to 14,000 years ago. I could not see this big bird, but it could certainly see me. I wonder what it was. I wonder what eats these mushrooms, because quite a few of them look like they had bites taken out of them, or like they'd been sort of intentionally pulled over and plucked. So yeah, I wonder if it's the squirrels or the deer or the chipmunks. I very much enjoyed this trail. The glacial till does make it a bit technical. Like, here's a great example. Everywhere you step, you're having to constantly think about where you step. But it's definitely like a woods trail. It's just a nice time hiking out in nature. And when you walk these trails, you're moving through layers of history. There's billion-year-old rocks under your boots. There's glacial ridges that hold in the lakes. There's charred stumps from the logging area. There's the speedy creation of the park itself in the 1960s. There's that quirky twist of an internet-famous bear cub. Bearhead Lake State Park is more than just a place to camp or fish. It is a landscape where every era left its mark, and you just have to know where to look for it. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see everyone out there in the woods. Bye-bye, y'all.